what's happening, guys? Anthony here with the SilverScreen analysis, and today we're going to be talking about Kathryn Bigelow's newest film, Detroit. This film stars John Boyega, Will Poulter, Jacob Latimore, Jason Mitchell, Algee Smith, Anthony Mackie, Hannah Murray, and Kaitlyn Dever. This story covers the events that took place on the night of July 25th, 1967 in Detroit, Michigan, when 3 African-American men were killed and others were severely beaten at the Algiers Motel, which was an incident that occurred during the racially fueled 12th Street riots. Now, this wasn't a movie to necessarily be excited for. It was surely going to depict some traumatizing moments that came from this real-life event. Kathryn Bigelow has certainly shown that when she has a topic for a film selected, that she crafts a gritty, realistic, and unrelenting movie to capture it. So for that aspect, this was a film that I did anticipate, despite knowing that it was going to be a tough one to sit through. But regardless of how uncomfortable this film was likely to be, it is still a movie that needs to be watched, digested, and stitched into your mind as something that took place purely out of racism. Racism captured in this film that was set in the 60s, yet does not feel too different than the world we live in today, which was something that creates even more of an emotionally charged impact as you watch. I also think a movie covering this subject matter would need to be in the right hands, and there was no denying it was. Kathryn Bigelow was a great choice among the candidates to direct, and the cast was, in my opinion, perfectly selected as well, with all of them bringing in amazing performances. None of them took center stage, and the ensemble cast all captured their roles perfectly. They fit together to make one solid unit of performers that were without a doubt able to capture the tragic events of that night with a stunning realism. They created a believability that's going to break your heart, it's going to give you chills, and it's going to pull you through a wave of deeply emotional tension. Watching the performances in this film, I found myself sitting in my seat completely still, taking in what I was watching, compelled from just the gripping scenarios that unfold during the long runtime. John Boyega was excellent in capturing this role as a man that was often put in tough positions. Jacob Latimore and Algee Smith were also very good in their roles, without a doubt selling their friendship. Jason Mitchell and Anthony Mackie provide the film some strong performances as well, both of them delivering the needed emotional tones that the story asked of them, and both of them without a doubt leaving their imprint on the film overall. And Will Poulter, he was also extremely riveting in this movie. He was put in that tough position of having to capture and portray just a vile individual, and he completely pulls it off. Poulter delivers the dialogue naturally, and it never felt like he was overacting for added dramatic impact. He really pours himself into this persona, and he conveys it exactly how the story needed it to, something that I think was aided with some natural dialogue that never felt like it was over-embellishing just for the sake of the movie's entertainment. I think the writing all around was extremely well done. The conversations and interactions between the various characters in this story felt natural. They felt fitting to the time period, showing some effort and trying to keep things as true to the actual events as possible, which is something you always have to respect in a biopic. The story overall I thought was well organized, but it did feel a little erratic early on. The story was kind of bouncing around from one area to another very quickly, but as the second act kicks in and the focus really tightens in on the Algiers Hotel, you can see that all these different areas the story covered early on were for a reason. Those moments were able to build the foundations of the social climate that was going on at the time. It was effectively able to capture the impact government and local law enforcement had on the times, as well as conveying the emotional impact that this was having on the African American community. The uneasiness that loomed all around was subtly captured early on, so as the film locked in on the events that took place at the Algiers, as a viewer, you were well aware of all the ramifications, which I thought really builds natural tension and flat-out uneasiness as the story just trudges its way through the events with detail and a pacing that resulted in cinematic brilliance. But at the same time, it was heartbreaking from an aspect of humanity and just the lack of human decency that happened that night. The story captures how, with some minor oversight and no one really wanting to overstep their boundaries, that these officers would be allowed to do something like this. I think the structure of the script conveyed this extremely well, with it really feeling like a reenactment as opposed to a dramatization. I thought the camera work and Bigelow's direction overall was extremely well done. The handheld camera techniques really pull you into the settings and situations in a very up close and personal way that give the film's overall tone a harsh, gritty realism. The pace really feels like it plays out minute by minute once the incident at the Algiers begins, and while it does kind of come across as drawn out out, it almost feels intentional at the same time. As if it was trying to capture the hours of torment these innocent victims went through over the course of the night. It does feel like the scenes get repetitive and it wears you out, but it keeps the uneasiness at a high as it progresses slowly through the night, which in my opinion really does connect you with the characters on a deeply emotional level. Detroit is not a movie to watch for entertainment. It's something to watch because of its importance and its social relevance. It is not an easy movie to sit through, but it was well crafted, showing high levels of effort on many levels and facets, and overall I'm going to give it 95%. Bigelow and the entire cast and the writing team create an emotionally gripping film that I think certainly has some Oscar potential. It's getting a limited release next week. It may or may not be hitting your city, but I do recommend checking it out if you have the opportunity to do so. It was compelling. It will wear you out as it progresses, but never does it show disrespect to anyone involved in the actual events by trying to glamorize this ordeal, but it simply feels like it's just creating awareness and paying homage. And that's my review of Detroit, guys. It's kind of hard to be upbeat when you're reviewing a film of this subject matter. It was a very sad movie, but a very good one, and I hope you enjoyed the review, guys. Make sure to drop it a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss anything new. As always, I'm Anthony. This is the Silver Screen Analysis, and I'll see you at the movies.